name is Taylor Horsfall. I grew up in Alvin, Texas, which is south of Houston, kind of southeast. Pretty much grew up there my whole life. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I actually have a twin brother, so that's really cool. Played volleyball, started at the age of 6, if you count YMCA. So my mom was my coach. She taught me how to underhand serve, and my mom has never played volleyball in her life. So that was really awesome. I started club here at AVA through Katie Garza, actually. She's also from Alvin. She was an All-American at the University of Texas. We heard about her and started doing lessons with her. And then I ended up at AVA when I was 12, or was 11, trying out for 12, so that was cool. I was just a baby. Played here from 12s through 18s, had a bunch of wonderful coaches. Played in the Alvin pipeline, went to Alvin Junior High, played there, Alvin High School. Played there. I was committed to the University of Tulsa for indoor, so I played there my 4 years, which was amazing. And then I decided to continue my volleyball career, and I went to play beach at Texas A&M Corpus to continue my college career. And then after that, I went back indoor. I've been playing professionally the last 4 years. I played in Cyprus my first year. I played in Finland 2 years in a row, and then I actually went back to Cyprus this last season. So hoping for 1 more year overseas. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to play pro since I first stepped on the court. I think there's just some things about some people that, just stick with them their whole life, or that they just know about them early on. And I picked up a volleyball. You can even ask Katie Garza. I showed up to my first volleyball practice in a baseball hat with my hair down and basketball shorts. I was a country girl and we had horses. We were doing the whole rodeo thing before, and I picked up a volleyball, and I was able to learn a lot. I think that my very first practice, and I still remember my very first practice, from that second I said, this is what I want to do my whole life, and this is what I want to be, and I want to be pro. And I just took it. That was never a question. I always knew that I wanted to do it. And I think early on, I understood the sacrifice for your family and your parents to make in order for you to do something. And being the youngest of 5, even if I didn't fully appreciate at the time, I think I understood what it took, and so I really bought into that, and I think that's why I'm here where I am today, honestly. Ooh, I would probably say setting the angle early, right? Creating space, making sure the ball's in front. I think by having a lot of space when you set your angle early, right, it allows you to adjust. I'm a player that I think I was really successful because I could play the ball anywhere on my body, and sometimes you misread, but if you're able to just kind of make the adjustment, you can still get a quality pass from a bad situation. Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point. So probably one of the hardest things about being at least a professional volleyball player, and probably for other sports as well, at least, whether you stay in the States, whether you go abroad, it can have a lot of strain on relationships, right? You can have a hard time communicating with friends still, staying in touch with friends. I know for me personally as a Libero, I'm one of few, and so every time I make a decision to go overseas, I really have to sacrifice, quality time with my friends. Do I choose volleyball over being with my friends? Do I choose volleyball or my friends over performance, right? Because when you're a professional, you think about performance all the time. Even if you're in your off season, right? Am I taking care of myself? Am I eating well? Am I working hard? Right? And sometimes that sacrifices, spending time with those friends, which, for some of my younger athletes, right, who are viewing this, you do that now, but it's not to the same degree. And, I've been doing it for so long that there are times that there are people I don't really talk to as much. Not that I don't care about them either less. It's just, sometimes life kind of goes on. And I think emotionally, as I get older, that's just something that gets harder and harder every year, because I miss home, I miss my people, I miss having that security, but I love what I do, and I think for those who really support me, really just want to see me happy. So I think those are the people you keep close, but overall it makes it really hard. Sophia asked.
Yes, Sophia asked, how did you reset when you're in a run?
I'll be honest with you. I get my confidence from the amount of touches I have. I don't know how else to word it. I've touched more balls than anybody combined. I don't know how to, I'm always in the gym. I always grew up in the gym. I come up with my own stuff in the gym. I get my teammates to play with me. So for me, I think my confidence, you know, if I miss a pass, I'm like, you know what? I've passed this ball 1,000 times. I'm gonna miss one. I'm gonna miss two. Like, that's part of the game. My reset is trust your training, trust your touches, you know? And I used to not always think that way. I'm very numbers based. Like, I know exactly what I'm passing. I know how many digs I have per game. For me, that kind of also keeps me in line with my personal goals. I've had the same personal goals for a while, right? Like, I want to pass at least a 2-3, 2-4. I want to pass at 50, 60% every match. And for me, you know, first set, if I pass at 35%, all right, my head is in the game, second set, let's go, you know? And for me, that's how I'm wired, is to be like results goal driven, but I trust my training, right? If you guys go to training, if you go to training enough, you should be fine. Have confidence in it, okay? I think having a lack of confidence maybe comes from not having enough touches, right? If you feel like you don't touch enough, go play some volleyball. Safely, right? We don't want any injuries. But when you get to my age and my experience, I've realized over the years I don't have to play as much, right? Because I have the confidence in the training I've done since I was, what, 7, 8, 9, right? So that's where I get my confidence. And you know, as a young player, it's okay to not have as much confidence as I do. That's okay.
For one practice, what would you say?
If I answered this question, if I could go back and coach my 14-year-old self, I would tell her a lot. She'd be overloaded. But I think the biggest thing I would tell my 14-year-old self is that, oh my God, is that just be present and enjoy it. I think my 14-year-old self was very hard on her. But I think looking back, she had every reason to be, because she is where she is now because of that 14-year-old self, right? I think she bought into all of her coaches. She bought into her instruction. She just loved the game. I would tell her to keep that fire. I'd also tell her hang out with her friends maybe sometimes a little bit more, right? But like I said, she wouldn't be here today if she didn't dial in at the young age like she did. And as a, what, almost 28-year-old self, 27, she's really appreciative of her 14-year-old self for being that player. I also would say, I don't want to say I have more confidence, but I would tell her to be more her and be free, because looking back, she was a very good player. And I think even back then, she didn't realize how good of a player she was. So now I kind of buy into that freedom and that style, and I think that's what I'm known for now. But back then, I think embrace it just a little bit more, because you were a rock star.
I love that, giving grace to yourself and the love to your younger self.
Yeah, she still loves the game.
Oh, yeah. You sure do. I can see that for sure. All right. Y'all also want to live your own lives, so you can't always be like always team, right? You know
Yeah, that's so interesting that you asked that. It's almost like the opposite for me. Back then, I think because how do I say it? I've always been the same person, but I'm a little bit more extroverted now, I guess. Like, I'm a little bit more whimsical now. I almost value team bonding more now as an adult than I ever did as a kid. You know, if we had team bonding at, you know, like a pool party at a teammate's house, I'd be like, oh, Mom, I don't want to go. And then now I'm like begging for team bonding. Like, I noticed chemistry in teams. I'm like, do you guys even hang out with each other? It looks like you don't hang out, you know? And it's funny, as an adult and as an experienced player, I can recognize that now, because back then I don't think I appreciated it. I would say when my career at Tulsa, we had a really good foundation of team culture. So, you know, the seniors at the time, we did a really good job, I think, trying to get people together all the time. I, in fact, think, yes, we hang out enough already, but if you can hang out and still be like casual humans, right, not athletes, I think that's what's important, right, is spending time, you know, sitting, watching a TV show together, you know, enjoying a team dinner together, having the small conversations, because you really get to know the person, but you also get to know how the best way it is to communicate. Like, what are their drivers? What are their motivators, right? Like, ultimately, that's what I think is important. I don't care how many kills per set somebody has. I care about who they are, right? And how that reflects on the court. And I think that's what makes team, chemistry valuable, in my opinion. Yeah, I didn't know that. Back in the day, I was like, I don't want to go to this pool party. I want to sleep.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably really tired, after being locked in maybe
Yeah.
for so so long of practicing, etc.?
It just depends where you're at. So probably a day in the life for me as a pro. We'll get up in the morning. It won't be super early, maybe 9 or 10. We'll have a lift. You'll go and work out. And then after that, you might have a serve and pass practice in the morning. So receivers will work on whether it's a little bit of defense, some passing, right? Nothing, we don't jump a lot in the morning. And then we'll have time for lunch. So you have depending on how, where you go or what you do, but most of the time your practices are gonna be after 4 p.m. When I was in Finland, we would have practices 4, maybe 5 to 7, team practices. You're with everybody, you're jumping, you're swinging, so normal team practice. But when we were in Cyprus, we practiced at 8 p.m., 8:30. So we would go super late, which that was really hard for me just because I have so much energy after practice, which is kind of ironic. But, but yeah, I mean, pretty much you have quite a bit of time in the middle of the day for things that you would want to do. I was also coaching, so before my practices, I would go coach the young sector because they would get out of school and I would coach them for about 2 hours and then I would go to my own practice in the evening. So for me, my day was not super, super busy, but you're definitely dialed in constantly to what you're doing, right? If you're, eating lunch, you have to be aware about what you're fueling, right? Because you have another practice. And then dinners usually are pretty late anyway. So, you go home, have dinner, shower, maybe watch TV. Most of us, we live with roommates, so we hang out and spend time there. So kind of that was a pretty much typical day in the life. If we have an off day, we might go hang out with our other friends from the city or other foreigners or what have you, go get dinner sometimes. It's ironic. It's the same kind of practice schedule as you would if you were in college. You just don't have school, right? And you get paid to do it, so that's nice. I don't think it's changed much. It also depends on the style of what your coach is looking for, right? You have different defensive systems for every coach you go to. My responsibilities are different from last season to the year before, right? Maybe you have a little bit more freedom, maybe you have a little less freedom, right? Maybe you have different defensive systems where you have to play sharp angle and deep angle and different type of balls. So I don't think it's changed much. I think that's why Europeans like American style liberos, just because of we're loud and we're chirpy and we talk and we're aggressive. I think they prefer that, which is why I think I'm able to play, and what has an appeal for me is that I bring those things, which they don't really train not all of them, but they don't train. There's a lot of liberos I've played with that are a little bit more quieter because they don't have that component. Because Americans, we're typically loud, outgoing. It's true. That's how the rest of the world sees us. But it translates on the court too. So responsibility-wise, I don't think it's changed. I think me going to play overseas has been different for a lot of the players, for the teams I've played on, in a sense of being a pro. But it's cool because I think they get to see different styles too. They don't say howdy, but they honestly think of guns first, pew pew pew. That's a big thing. Or cowboys. I'll get cowboys a lot. They're where are your cowboy boots? I'm they're not here. But no, I say y'all still. They haven't picked up y'all. I'm trying to work on that one. But howdy, not as much. But they get more excited about Texas. A lot of Europeans, they love Texas. They really do. Yeah. My pregame hype song is "Believe" by Cher. Okay. It's the best song.
And then the US game routine.
Ooh. It depends if we.
Just wherever.
Yeah, my pregame routine just depends, where I am, which country I'm in. We usually have a pre-morning practice, a serve and pass. I like to get up. I'll drink maybe coffee, have a small thing for breakfast. Something usually fairly light. I'm someone that, not that I get anxious, I get excited on game days to a point where I have to learn to calm down over the years is kind of my thing. So my routine kind of gets me set to be more chill. So when I'm at the game, then I exert all my energy there. So we have a pre-practice routine. We'll do a good serve and pass for about an hour to an hour and a half at most of my teams, even in college. And then a lot of times we'll have a set brunch spot. We'll go with the team afterwards. So after the serve and pass, we'll get coffee, we'll go for brunch, we'll just hang out for about a few hours. I like to make sure I have my pregame shower You know, all my clothes are washed, everything's laid out, I do my pregame shower. I like to wear makeup when I play. I mean, some people might not like it. I don't like do a full beat or anything, but I definitely encompass like feel good, look good, play good. So like, you know, a little tint and moisturizer, some mascara, you know, that's my thing. And it's really, I mean, it's important to me, right? My hair is always done, whether, lately I've been in the slick back, but that's because it's modern now. It wasn't really super big when I was playing in college. But I really like to do braids. You know, I like to make sure my hair is done. You know, if you want to get specific with it, I do visualize a little bit, not too much. I like to roll out an insane amount when I get to the gym. So I'm always rolling out, I'm stretching. I eat food right before, so if I'm in the locker room, I'll take like a granola bar. I don't drink energy drinks though, because my defense will be crazy that night, but my service will be really bad because I'll be too jittery. So I don't do that as much. I try not to. So yeah, just it kind of also depends on what time you play, right? The routine can kind of change based on like night games versus like afternoon games. If I have a night game though, those are a little bit more difficult for me, only because once I finish the game, I don't get to go to bed till like 7 a.m. because my energy is still high and my adrenaline is still high till like the next day. So sometimes playing night games can be really difficult for me because I'm already up here on energy, and then playing volleyball and practice late at night, our games, I'm up here. So that would probably be the hard part. So if we win, it's definitely even harder. I can't really fall asleep. And then I would say post-game, a lot of it's recovery for me. Like I'm post 2 knee surgeries, you know, I'm getting older, so I try to take care of my body the best I can, right? So it's going into the gym, doing rollout, you know, maybe riding the bike, going even for a walk, seeing the physio. I make sure that even though it's an off day, usually after the day after game days, it's still a chance to get better. So no, I will not be running, I will not be, you know, playing volleyball, but I'll definitely spend that day to recover. I'll probably go back and watch film. I like the 24-hour rule of like, let's not talk about volleyball. However, I definitely evaluate my personal performance and I'll go back and watch the game within hours of playing. Typically is kind of my routine. Yeah.
I like that. You probably developed that at a young age.
I have to.
Before you go to college.
Yeah, sure. You.
If it wasn't coach, it could be you or coach. A funny moment, a weird moment.
Well, I have a lot of funny moments. I guess one of them that comes to mind, because I'm in ABA, right, we're in ABA right now, so I'll just think of this one. One of my good friends, her name is Chloe. We played at Alvin together and we played here. She's like a little lefty, she's a stud. She's still a stud. Hi Chloe, if you're seeing this. But when we played at Alvin together, we would always, like I played outside my senior year and she was the opposite. We would fight over the ball. Like we'd run a 6-2 with 2 of our setters and they were sisters. And every single time a free ball comes, set me the ball. And Chloe would be like, no, set me the ball. So our setters, I felt so bad. I love them, by the way. They're some of my good friends. And they'd be freaking out on like who to set in the middle of play because her and I are yelling at each other across the court like, I want the ball, no, I want the ball, set me the ball, I'm gonna put it away. And there's been times in games like I go back and laugh at the film, like it's on the internet sometimes, and you can just hear us at each other. You can just see how we interact. I think with that being said, there's a lot of times when you just have those perfect like small connections with your teammates. Like I played with one of my best friends, her name's Mariah, our entire club and college career. I think maybe not a funny moment, but something I'll remember forever was our very last game together and we just sobbed in each other's arms, right? I think knowing that that was our last time to play. And I think I valued that moment, you know, like I remember that. Like I have photos of us just crying into each other's arms, like our very last point, our very last game. So like, yeah, it wasn't a funny moment as per se, but I hug her the same. Anytime I see her, I hug her exactly the same like I did in that very last moment of the game. So that's kind of what I think about, you know, it's just those little moments with your teammates, and some of them are my best friends. Out of system setting, 1,000%. I think one thing about the European game that I've learned is that everybody on the floor should be able to set the ball. Because sometimes when I was playing in America, I was very greedy. I'm a very greedy player. I want to touch the ball. However, let's say if there was, you know, the player, the setter in right back or what have you would dig a ball in right front, I would be running across the court from 5 to go set the ball when the opposite can just set and get a good higher quality ball. But because I was greedy and I was taught to take every second ball, right, like it kind of caused problems, right, where maybe the quality is set. Not saying that I can't set, but overall, like, you're just not getting the highest quality. But I think in Europe, they do a good job of training everybody to be ready for the second ball. And I think they're able to have more opportunities to swing, thus creating more opportunities to score, right? Because if you have teams who are swinging more offensively, they have a higher chance of getting points, right? Ultimately, that's the goal. So I think if everybody can work on their out-of-system setting, right, I think that translates to your spacing and angles, both in serve, receive, and defense, and then it also increases your overall ball control, right? You learn the court. Yes, yes. I consider serve receive offensive, right? Because that is, you have the first opportunity to score and have the first opportunity to swing. Like, right, I would consider serving itself defensive, and I would consider serve receive more offensive.
Okay.
Yeah. When you think about like your side out and side out percentages versus your scoring percentages, right? If you side out at 60, let's say, the goal is 60, at least 60%. If you're siding out at 64%, you're winning every game, great. But point scoring, it's a lot harder. So like if your offensive side should be siding out at 60%, that means your hitting efficiency is higher in serve receive than it is when you're in defense transition, right? So if you're point scoring at a lower percentage, you have a defensive mindset, right? Because you want to get that scoring, that point scoring higher. So when you're in serve receive, it's offensive because you have a higher chance of scoring. Like, does that make sense? Okay.
Continue with that, or you have to read fast.
Yeah.
You expand on what you think.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I think size is nice. Now, will I say it matters? To a degree, right? I mean, you know, coaches, players, teams, I think it's nice to have, you know, like a taller setter who can block, right? You save subs, you save opportunities, right? You know, sometimes if you have a two-setter system for like American style, right, we always don't have enough hitters for that system, right? Because if you run a 6-2, you need at least two opposites who are efficient enough, which is sometimes hard, right? However, like I'm 5'8", okay, if you want to do that in the metric system, it's 173 centimeters roughly, right? I'm not the tallest human, but I mean, I've played outside my first pro season. I've played outside my entire career pretty much, on and off. I play beach. So I'm not saying I'm the most athletic human in the world, like I can jump decent. I'm really fast, but like I said, I think it comes down to reps and, you know, how do you manage what you have? So if I'm an undersized hitter, okay, learn how to tool the block, right? Learn how to get hitters out of system. You may not be trying to score initially, right? But if I can get the other team out of system, then I can make it easier to be in system and then it's easier to score. So you just kind of have to understand what your role is, right? If you're a libero and you're an undersized bro, right? What do you, like, don't worry about being too short. Worry more about, okay, am I making the correct reads? Am I stopped on defense? Am I shifting my weight? Right? Because you're gonna have to hone in on the technicality of that piece rather than worrying about how far your range is, right? And then there are things we work on to expand our range, which is playing outside of our body more, making the correct dive move, right? Being able to read the hitter, right? If you're in serve receive, being able to read the server, your presence on the court, right? You know, if you're an undersized setter trying to block, right? Like, can you make sure you have the right timing, the right lineup? Like, there are so many things to focus on that are in our control rather than focusing on things that are out of control, which is like your physical, biological makeup. Well, like for instance, like let's take a part of the game, serving, right? I joke about it all the time and I'll say it till the day I'll die and I'll die on this hill. Serving is my best skill because that was the one skill where you could go anywhere just with one ball and just practice, 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 practice. So for me, if I'm someone who's like, you know, I play defense really well, right? Maybe I struggle hitting. I'm gonna try to point score in the rotations that I'm really good at, which if I'm really good at serving, that means if I spend more time back row, I spend less time front row. So if I get more points when I'm at the service line, ultimately that's helping me out because then I have to take less swings. And then the girl who's, if I'm playing outside and the L1, because I'm more of an L2, if the L1's front row, we want to get her as many opportunities as possible, more than me, right? So I'm gonna get really good at serving, so then I take less opportunities and she can take more, right? So it's also knowing the game. That's super important, I believe. I think my biggest culture shock, right? I went to Cyprus my very first year. So I think my timeline, right? Like I played indoor, then I went to go play beach, and then I went back to indoor. So for my first season, I played as an outside, which was great. I think the biggest culture shock for me was how important and how like big these relationships I was gonna have with these people were. Obviously the culture was different, right? Like lifestyle in Cyprus versus lifestyle in America, very different. However, I think the hardest thing was more of how much I was gonna relate to these people, right? We were from two different parts of the country, and every human I've learned has all the same universal experiences. So sometimes you forget when you're dialed into one place, you forget they're exactly the same thing that's happening, it's just in a different place. So I think the biggest culture shock for me, ironically, was that we're all the same. We all have the same experiences, we all do the same things, we all have the same life. And you know, I think they have a passion for volleyball like I did, and that was a culture shock. It's like these people were working so hard, I'm like, oh, I thought I was the hardest worker. I was a fool. So that was really wonderful to see. It wasn't even like a bad thing, it was more in the sense of like, wow, like these people are great, like how am I supposed to leave, you know, like how am I supposed to go to a pro country and play pro and then maybe a year never see them again after that, like, which is something you have to consider every time you go abroad. So I was more culture shock emotionally. The food in Cyprus, the Mediterranean, was amazing. That I can never give up. But I think, like I said, the culture shock wasn't really anything to do with the culture. It was in a sense of like, everyone has the same universal experiences as humans, right? No matter where you are in the world. And I think for me, it opened up my eyes and I was able to get more perspective. I'm a lot more open-minded about a lot of things. I'm a lot more relaxed, right? Like Americans, I guess my culture shock is that Americans were so uptight about everything. Everything's in a hurry, has to be done now. And I feel like in abroad, you get to focus on living life more, enjoying life, and living in the present, which we do really bad here.
I got to catch that last part, and I don't know if you can see the same.
Yeah.
Sometimes being a little inefficient at things
yes.
makes you be even more efficient.
I agree. And how do I, like, you know, if we get coffee with our friends abroad, we're there for 3 hours, and it's great. You sit on that couch in that chair and you just sink. Like, you know, here we get a coffee, it's like 45 minutes, 30 minutes maybe. And I'm like, oh, I value that time because time is so important, right? Like, there's so little of it. Like, if I learned anything, I have so little time. And so I think I was able to appreciate relationships, friendships, my own family, friends. I still talk to my teammates from Cyprus my first year. They're wonderful, wonderful people, but yeah, I mean, to them, you know, the American dream is the American dream, but for me, I'm like, man, you guys actually get to enjoy life and you don't realize like you live in the present a lot more than we Americans do. So that's what I'm trying to work on and continue, but it definitely has opened my eyes a lot in that sense. Yeah.
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
No, for sure.
That kind of came to that realization too.
Yeah, well, even if you just visit, you don't really, like, you go on vacation in Europe, you don't actually experience that because your itineraries, it's not like you're actually integrating with the culture. With pro, you get to actually live the culture.
So, on the same went through on your volleyball journey?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, I have a big family. It's like family of 5. You have 5 children, you know. It can be kind of brutal. My mom and my real dad had divorced when I was 3. So like that's, I mean, at the time you don't really think about it much, but for me, like, you know, once a day, you know, I'm with my dad once a week, one day of the week, which is not a lot, and then like every other weekend, which emotionally as like a young person, it's normal. You're like, oh, okay, yay. You know, I wish I saw my dad more. But then when you get older playing club, I started to get a point where like if I had practices, you know, on the day when I'm supposed to see my dad, well, I couldn't go see him because I had practice, right? So as I got older, one thing that I kind of took for granted was like that time, right? Because majority of the custody was for my mom. So that was kind of hard, you know, growing up. You want to be around your family, and volleyball, I think, kind of got in the way of that. And you don't realize that much until you're older, how much that impacted you. My dad was then diagnosed with stage 4 stomach cancer my junior year of high school. And I might have photos, I have to go back and look, but my high school was really awesome. We did like a big, you know, like night for his honor. He had stomach cancer, so the color for that is, or the, you know, I don't know how to say it, but the color that you represent like stomach cancer is like that periwinkle color. So my team, we kind of like got periwinkle stuff. We had ribbons on. We had a big sign, and it was really awesome. My team was really supportive of me and my dad and my family during that time. So I really thank them so much for that. I look back and I was just really awesome. And then, you know, like you continue, like my dad got to see me win a 17 Open national championship, which was really cool. You know, and I would miss like family vacations. Like he would take like my real brothers, they would go on vacation without me because I had volleyball. So like those things, like, you know, you don't really realize until you lose it. And when I was a freshman in college, I was still in Tulsa at the time. He ended up passing away while I was still in school. So I didn't, you know, like that was really hard to go through just because, I mean, you lose a parent and you're stuck in school. Like we still had practices, I still had classes, I had to stay there. I couldn't really come home and grieve with my family, which you can imagine is really, really difficult. And obviously having to do life without your dad at a young age, you know, as an emotional female could be really young. I was only 18. So I had to learn and grow up a lot, and I had to rely on adults. Like my coach at the time was super supportive of me. Like, you know, he had my back, and, you know, like, yes, he was my coach, but he also was somebody that I had to like rely on to be there, because I didn't have anybody as like a figure at Tulsa that I could trust, like, you know, besides my friends and my best friend Mariah. But, you know, your support system gets smaller. So you kind of have to, you know, work through that. And not only did I have that, I had 2 knee surgeries in college, back-to-back years. So I still have struggles with my knees. For anybody who knows, they all are like, wow, your knees are so swollen. I still have struggles there because of the knee surgeries. So you go through a lot of adversity, right? But I kept showing up. Like that was the biggest thing. I kept showing up. And, you know, there was a time where I was skipping classes, you know, the typical, you're grieving. Like it doesn't look like that on social media, but I was skipping classes. My grades went down. With my knee surgeries, I was in physical therapy 3 times a day. I was sobbing every day because it was 1, painful, but 2, it's so mentally taxing. So like what you guys see, is not what actually was reality. Obviously my teammates know, but emotionally I was lashing out. Like I couldn't control anything because I was very frustrated, right? But I think one thing that I was really good at was that no matter what, I'm going to show up and I'm going to work. So it didn't matter how emotional I was. It didn't matter if, you know, my grades were slipping. If I walked into the gym, that was my sanctuary. There was nothing that was going to taint my love for the game, right? What is outside of the gym is outside the gym. So I was really good at showing up and working hard. And because the gym was my sanctuary, I would go in myself. We had a keypad on my Tulsa gym, and honestly, that's kind of what got me recruited there in the first place, is I could go into a gym anytime I wanted, and that was a safe haven for me. So I was able to kind of get through that, and I mean, I still struggle with those kind of things today, but I think it kind of evolved me more maturely, and it made me appreciate and be grateful for what I have, right? And understanding that volleyball is a privilege. And I did sacrifice a lot because while I was playing volleyball, I used to have regret that I should have been hanging out with my dad because now he's not here. But I realized that now that volleyball's kind of also brought us together, and I know that he's looking down, he's so proud of me, right? My knees are holding up. I've had wonderful trainers. I still talk to my old physical therapist, my old, I guess, athletic trainer, physical therapist. I still talk to my old strength coaches who really invested in me to help me get to where I am. So you have a lot of people in your support in your corner. You just kind of have to buy into them. Like they're there to help you. I still talk to my head coach, honestly, like every other day to help me. You know, we talk about things, and every, I guess, like death anniversary, or, you know, I don't know how you want to say it. Sorry if that comes off aggressive, but he sends me a message like checking in on me, right? Because he knows how hard of a day it is. So those things I think I value a lot. And yeah, it kind of still gets me through. I still struggle, right? There are days like if I have a bad game or something, I'm like sobbing, oh, I wish my dad was here. I mean, I wish my family even was here to come watch. I'm so far away, but there's a lot of endeavors and a lot of, I guess, like hardships, you know, how having your family to watch you play. That's also really hard, right? So I think one thing I always stayed constant was keeping the volleyball court sacred, right? This is your happy place, keep it here. And I think that's been really helpful for me. I was gonna say too, like with everything, like I had a really supportive family. So I wanna make sure I add this, because even though my real dad passed away, my stepdad, I had a stepfather kind of step in. That's why we have such a big blended family. We have a bunch of personalities, right? He really stepped up a lot, which I think I was very grateful for, because not everyone has, you know, a second father figure really step up and be there. So I just wanted to give a shout out at that same time. Like, even though I lost my real dad, I had my stepdad really kind of push in there, and he still gets excited. I brought him a UNA shirt because I am a part-time coach, and he wears that every day. He wears the UNA volleyball shirt every day, and he's excited about them coming to play in Houston in a month or two. So I just had to make that point because he's been the biggest cheerleader since that, so go Robert. I'm sorry, I needed to add that. I don't know if you'll put it in there, but he needed the shout out.
She goes.
Yeah, like actual Kalani?
Yeah.
Kalani, okay.
So what are they?
Like from an individual standpoint or a team standpoint?
That's another good
That, I mean, because I watch different things, right? So I'll watch it multiple times. I'll watch the same game. I'll watch my mistakes, okay? I'll watch my positives, right? And then I'll watch, okay, decision makings, reads from a team standpoint. So for me, I'm very interested about the game. So if I'm watching my errors, which everyone needs to have the confidence to watch their mess ups, right? So then you can actually break it down. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, why did I shank this ball? Why did I make this wrong read? You know, and it's, you know, is my weight shifted, right? Am I not reading soon enough? Am I not stopped on defense? So for me, I watch that, but I sometimes like it because for me, I'm like, yeah, I messed up. And then I go into practice, it's a little bit more motivating for me because I don't like to lose. I want to be the best. So for me, I remember that and I take it into practice, not to like beat me down, but to be like, all right, you got the next one, right? And then I watch my good things. So I think it's super important to know, okay, like that felt good, why did that feel good? And I don't know if other people do this. I remember a lot of my passes, at least the ones that feel right, because when you get to a certain point, you know what feels good, right? And I remember, okay, why does that feel good? That's what that looked like, you know? A lot of times I will specifically watch like fluidity of my passing moves. I'll watch the fluidity of defense, just to see like how I'm moving, you know, am I making the correct reads? One thing I will also watch is like team decision making. So I don't watch just my team, I'm watching the other team because more than likely we're gonna have to play them again. So a lot of times I'll look for situations like if my team serves this player, who do they like to go to offensively? And we have these stats from our coaches and things, we'll go over like film. But I like to go back and watch that to be like, okay, well they like to go to this girl in this rotation when this person gets served. And then that'll help me make the right read on defense, that'll help me be stopped, right? Also watching who do they like to serve in games? Like, can I help my outsides by covering more court? You know, some things like that. So there's a lot I watch, but I don't just watch it one time. I'll look for different things and I'll watch it 3 different times, right? So it's just kind of how you see the game and how you break it up. I can't consume all that info at once, I'll be honest. Yeah. Yeah. And I really like, everything comes down to like, how do we side out? How do we side out? So for me, like defense is important, but I'm somebody who watches the service-receive rotations. Okay, what's our weakest rotation? Who do they like to serve in which rotations? You know, what do we do in our rotations? Where do we score most? Like, so for me, everything I do is like side out related for the most part, because I think that's the most important part. So it actually was funny. We had a moment. We pulled a couple of pranks on my Estonian coach once. So when I was in Finland my first year, so that was my second postseason overall, we had an Estonian coach who used to play in Finland, like he's a legit player. We one time bean boozled him with the jelly beans. So if you guys know, Estonian and Finnish are very similar languages. However, sometimes like a word in Finnish could be the same word in Estonian, but they mean completely different things. So we were able to bean boozle him doing that. We looked up like how to say like certain things in Estonian, but that was fun. But I think one time he said something in Estonian, but it was the same word in Finnish. So I thought he said like a bad word in Finnish because he said it in Estonian, but like because it's the same word. But I mean, I can't think of like another, like a situation specifically. Trying to think. I mean, I told you I found out that my Cypriot teammate was pregnant once, but she didn't speak any English. So like that whole process was interesting of her trying to demo, speaking in Greek, that she was pregnant. Other than that, like not a lot of like we have our typical miscommunications on the floor. Like half of my team didn't speak English my first year. So we're just saying like 4, 4, 1, 1, you know, like elade. I had to learn a lot of, I think, my job, like they weren't gonna learn a lot of English. I think my job was to learn more Finnish and more Greek and then try to adapt from there. So I don't have a lot of like, that one was hard because I don't have a lot of, because they speak a lot of pretty good languages. Oh, I will say, my last coach, I love Enrico. Enrico, you are a great coach if you see this, but it'd be so funny. We had me, I don't know, I guess I'm really hard to understand when I speak English abroad, because me and coach would have so many moments where we would just not understand each other. And somebody else, like one of my other teammates, foreign teammates, they could say something in English and he would understand. But if I said the same thing, he would not understand me. And then we had a Canadian girl named Yayla. Hi, Yayla, love you, we were roomies. She came and he understood her perfectly. And I didn't know quite what it was. So I don't know if I have an interesting story, but I will say apparently I cannot be understood as my English language cannot be understood abroad. So that's good to know. It's a Texan accent, I think.
Maybe. And one you secretly dread, even as a pro.
I love movement passing. So working on the ins to outs, outs to ins and passing, like working on the shuffle movement, that I love. I love movement passing. Any sort of four corner, isolated reception drill, love it. Dig set, I love. Okay, I love dig set. Now a drill that I hate. There's a lot. A drill that I hate would honestly be like any sort of just 3-man reception for reps. Servers versus passers, I hate. Like, I get too competitive almost to the point where I like will argue, and I think it brings out my bad side a little bit because I take a lot of pride in my first touch when it comes to serve receive and ball control. So if my ball is like not perfect enough or we don't count it as a point for passers, I lose it, right? Like sometimes I don't agree exactly with what the coaches are saying about, you know, if that's a good pass or not. So that's where we have differences and it brings out the worst in me.
I feel like, see, this is, that was only a 2.
Yes.
You know, and you're like, what?
Yes, and the thing is like I have no fear. So like I will say things, I'll do things irrespectfully, right? I know my place and my boundaries with my coaches, but sometimes if I get too comfortable, those boundaries can be crossed. I'm a very nice human, but I'm really competitive. But the thing is, like, with those kind of drills, those are the best things for me, but because I'm so competitive, sometimes it does bring it out. But I like to focus because sometimes I get too excited when I play that I don't lose focus, but sometimes it's hard to dial in. So I love to drill. I want to get as many reps as I possibly can. So those isolation drills where you just serve balls and just let me pass, for me that's therapeutic. And also dig setting. I love to set out a system. I love to play defense. So anything that's isolated where then I can get a lot of reps, those are drills that I love. I love drills. I do not like sixes. Honestly, I'm still managing how to take like outside advice and then balancing what I want or figuring out what I want. For instance, like, you know, I have a future to be a coach and I want to be a coach, right? And I've been playing this game for a long time. I know jokingly some people are ready for me to retire, you know, because they're excited for what I can do as a coach. It's also volleyball. I think I've had really good networking, right? I have a lot of people supporting me, and so ultimately everyone wants the best And I really value those people because a lot of times those are my mentors, my old coaches, like people I still look up to, right? Like once they're in the role of superiority in comparison to me, like they're still my boss, right? They're still my coach. And for me, I want to listen to what everybody has to say, right? But overall, I think I'm still figuring that out. Like, I think the next, few years, the next few chapters, it's going to be a lot of learning for me. It's going to be a lot of growing. I'm excited to see where I go. I'm still trying to figure out, what's the right path. But I think that's why I'm very blessed to, be able to get to come home. I get to work with, club kids. I get to work with high school. I'm doing a little bit of in the college scene, right? And so I think it opens windows. I'm still figuring it out. I don't think I'll figure it out for the next few years, but I will say balancing advice can be really hard because there's just so many people I continue to look up to, and I really value everyone's opinion. And I think everyone is right. I think they have a lot more knowledge and experience than I do in the regards of, what could be really good, right? I ultimately know myself the best, but as somebody who's still young and still fresh, I really balance. I really struggle with trying to figure out the balance with that. So I don't really have a clear answer and how to do it. My biggest thing is that I'm trying all of it, right? I think I just have to give myself grace and understand that I'm gonna like some things more than others. I'm gonna be better at some things than others. But I think that's part of the professional culture. That's just kind of how we're trained and how we're wired. We have to be ready for anything. And be ready to adapt, right? There could be a change where I may not want to do, let's say, something in that anymore. I may just want to do something completely else. I'm ready for it, I'm in a good place.
So, if you make the mistake, it's
yeah.
gonna happen.
Yeah.
But the more you're willing to try to make it, you're
exactly.
gonna figure it out faster.
Well, and that was the thing. I tell this a lot. If you give a player an adjustment and you say, hey, I need you to toss higher on your serve. But let's say they only get it higher by this much. And you're no, I need you to buy in, toss it too high. You know what I mean? You won't find your medium until you try. So I think that's a big thing that's super important where I think I was set apart early. If a coach said, hey, I need you to do this, I would do it, whether it was too extreme or not. I'm make the extreme change so then you can learn what that middle ground is, right? I'm very big on that, very big on that. I'm toss higher. No, get up there,
So with that,
at the college level, it doesn't happen that often because a lot of times that's regulated or they have outside discussion. But I would say that happens more in the younger level where you'll have coaches for maybe 1 year and apart, have two different kind of philosophies. I don't say stress over it. If a coach in your moment asks you to do something, you do it, right? And the way I say it, and you'll probably hear this a lot from me, you have your little volleyball toolbox, right? You never want to take anything out of the toolbox. It's like a Dora Explorer bag. It just expands, right? You just keep adding. So the things that you learn from another coach, you keep it there, right? And you have the confidence. And then things you're learning from the other coach, you do it. So then you can do both, right? I don't think there's a lot of times they conflict. And if they do, take what you hear with a grain of salt because everyone's human, right? They're going to say things that they may sound like they conflict, but nobody ever wants to say at least I won't ever say that's incorrect. Don't do this way. You don't do this way. I may say I prefer this way because of A, B, C, but I'll never say don't do that anymore at all. Because, if in a game, you're not going to think about, oh, I need to make this specific floor move on this ball. You're just going to see ball, get ball, right? So if we can have training where, I can take a ball here, I can take a ball there, right? Then I can be more well equipped, right? Because some people are in midline, angle, that for example, it's just a small example. But if you can do both, right, then it just expands your range. So in that regard, I've never had too many issues, but I also was in the gym so often where I did have a bunch of coaches and they're not all gonna think the same thing. And I think that's also what makes volleyball great. There's so many ways to play the game, so many ways to do it. If we can do every single style, then you're golden, right? Then you have to worry. So I think for players who they struggle with that, I'm do what your coach is asking, but just know that what you did previous doesn't take away from learning something new or a new way of doing it, right? Ultimately.
These days they just call it lock-in.
Yeah, or clock in or something, lock-in, yeah. What do I tell myself?
Yeah.
Enjoy it. I'm like, honestly, sometimes I sit there, I'm like, what an honor it is to get bounced on right now. Really, it sounds so funny. But like, I think the older I get, I have an understanding that like my body's lasted this long to get me to where it is. If people are bouncing on me, good for them. Cause like, you know, I can dig a lot of balls and I play very well, and that's something I can actually say based on like my credentials. However, if somebody can bounce a ball on me, good for them. Like, enjoy it, because there's not going to be very many opportunities I get bounced on, right? Like, one day, this is all going to be done. Like, my playing career is going to be to an end. So honestly, I tell myself, you know what? It's a great swing by her. Enjoy it. Don't let it happen again. But if it does, you're going to enjoy it even more, right? Like, what an honor it is to get bounced on. Like, what a privilege it is to get maybe somebody to get a kill on you who also has been playing professionally, right? Like, that's an honor, in my opinion. Gosh, oh my God. It's been different every year. I would say my outsides this last season, probably, I had a couple of foreign outsides who loved it. They were very supportive. They were also good receivers, so I think we had that chemistry. Now, I played with one of my best friends in Finland, and she was a middle. So we were also in practice, like talking mess to each other every practice. So if I did something good, I think we were each other's best cheerleaders. Oh man, so probably from a middle at that point. It's a bit different every year, and then my first year when I was in Cyprus, it was a setter. So professionally, it's all over the map. I mean, I played with my best friends, like in club and high school, so that's really hard. Now I will say shout out to Mariah, because we played club and college together. But I had one teammate, which she's one of my closest friends, named Maddie Flora. Okay, she played here, and then she also played at Stellar. So ironically, she was the second lib. She was the libero under me. So when I was at Tulsa, and this is really amazing. Like, she's probably one of the greatest people I've ever met. Like, I was in the libero jersey, and she was like the second lib, the DS, if you will. And she was my biggest cheerleader, right? And I think that says a lot about her character. That says a lot about me learning from her, even if, you know, I was in the jersey and she wasn't, right? But by her being my biggest cheerleader as a libero, like, we're in competing spots, right? And I think she's probably the biggest standout when it comes to like teammates supporting teammates. Like, she has your back, she'll fight for you, and then she'll also be your biggest cheerleader. So I think from a teammate standpoint, a fellow libero who is competing for the same spot on the floor in playtime was my biggest cheerleader, which is amazing, right? Like, you know, there's not very many people who are lucky enough to say that. So shout out to Maddie. That's probably the number one. So Maddie Flora she's a little nugget, right? She's like 5 feet tall. So for any D1 liberos, Maddie is about 5 feet, 5'1". And she just hustled, she grinded, she was going for every ball, right? Like, we had really good chemistry, especially my senior year. Like, she knew my range and she took care of her own stuff. She could do everything. But I think ultimately what set her apart is her ability to be such a great teammate, vocally, emotionally, and like dependability wise. Like, not only was she a great friend off the court, she's one of my best friends. She's someone I could always rely on. I called for anything. Hey, you want to do this? Hey, I need you. Can you be here? She'd be there. And no question, she'd be there. And so that transferred on the floor where like I could do something and like maybe I could even steal a ball from her, which that happens all the time, right? Because liberos are greedy. And she would just hype me up so much. She'd be pushing on me. She's jumping on me. Like, and I mean, that's the epitome of a great teammate. She was a fellow libero. Like, she wanted the jersey, right? And then she put that aside to be focusing on like what it takes for us to be successful. So that's really hard. I think she was the epitome of that.
You gotta be challenged at times. If everything was easy,
yeah,
sometimes it gets boring, no?
As a libero, I really struggle with that. That was another, I guess, an adversity thing. A lot of times playing libero, especially overseas, we don't get to serve, we don't get to hit. And as somebody who's trained in every skill, I love doing everything. So when I play in matches, sometimes, yes, I have to lock in, but I have to have that mindset because the game can get boring for me. Like, I have to cheer extra louder. I have to celebrate crazier. I gotta, try to stay dialed in a an emotional side, because if I don't, I'll get bored. That sounds bad, but when you play for as long as I have, and you've played as much sixes, right, I have to start playing a different game, right? I gotta make mini games against the team in my own brain. I gotta cheer loudest. I'm like, who can be the best cheerleader today, me or them, right? Like, there are sometimes different mini games I have to play in order to stay dialed in, which is okay. That comes with age, that comes with the position, right? But that's something I think I struggle with now that I play beach, now that I play grass, right? It's very hard.
That sheds some light for sure. Where they get to be a defender.
Yeah.
Once you're at the pros,
but it also changes the rhythm, right? Like, I played 5.5 rotations. I'd only be off for a half rotation in college, and then I'm off for two full rotations, right? So it's a little different, or 2 full half rotations.
What is that like?
What is it like? It's non-stop communication, right? But I'm somebody who, I don't just be talking just to talk, right? Like, there's gotta be some sort of intention behind what you're saying. So for me, like, if there's a server, right? We talk about, okay, she likes to serve here. She served here at this zone last time. You're communicating with your players, like, hey, be ready for it to drop to your left. That's where she served last time. Like, when you get older at the older groups and more experienced, players have tendencies, and you pick them up really fast. Especially if you're playing teams 2 or 3 times a year. Like, you already know, especially more playoffs, you play the same teams. So there are sometimes a season we'll play we'll play the same team 5 times, right? So talking about the plays of like tendencies, where you think they're gonna go, maybe what their plan is, what rotation they're in, right? That's communicated before the play. During the play, you're talking about, okay, this is what's open, this is what they're blocking, right? Who they're setting, right? They're going to force. Okay, hey, 4-4-4, they're pushing out. It's a fastball, be ready to move. You see the pass. Okay, hey, out of system, shift, shift, shift. We're going into our out of system defense, right? So in the play, you're talking about like what defense you're gonna be in, mid-play, where you want your hitters to go, likewise. And then after the play, obviously, if it's a good thing, you're saying good things to your teammates, you're giving positive feedback. Now, if it's something we messed up on, we hold the huddle for at least 2 seconds. You say your feedback, your critiques, like, maybe my hitter got blocked. Okay, hey, I think this shot's gonna be open. They're blocking this and this on you. Hey, we got the next ball, move on. So your feedback it's direct, right? It's still encouraging, right, to a degree, but it's fast. Like, you don't wanna sit there and give feedback that's 1,000, minutes to say it, right? You're saying it direct, you're moving on, you're making eye contact, and you're making physical touch, and then you go back to whatever spot, whether it's defense or serve receive, right? You do the same routine. So that's what it looks like for me. Now, it's not just like talking just to talk. Like, there's gotta be intention. So if you're gonna speak, it's gotta make sure you're doing it efficiently, where you're not saying 1,000 things, but you're giving feedback that's actually gonna be useful. Like, that's something that's really important for me, right? Hot pink. I had a hot pink one in high school. We called it Pinky. Yeah, Pinky. I love that one. There was a highlighter yellow one we had too. She didn't have a name. And then the Libero before me, they had like an aqua blue one named Scuba Steve. I would bring back Scuba Steve. But yeah, my favorite one would be like a hot pink one, for sure. Ooh. I don't like sleeveless as much. I prefer solid color. It's like a hot pink magenta like crossover, and I would probably have it long sleeve. Yeah, I think I have a preference to long sleeve jerseys just a little bit more than like sleeveless. Or I know I might get a lot of hate for this. I'm not a big fan of like the sleeveless and then the sleeves. I think they look great physically, but I like to wear arm sleeves as it is. So like, I want to be able to put my arm sleeves underneath my jersey. And then the sleeveless ones, I get really cold. So I get cold. So I'm like, I need the long sleeve jersey, because I also like to tuck it in as well if I can. So yeah, I would do like a loose, large, long sleeve, hot pink magenta looking jersey, solid color.
Okay.
With black lettering.
I like that.
Yeah.
I'll see.
What would I change?
Yeah.
I would change letting us hit front row. I would change everything. I'm just kidding. But like Liberos like can hit front row.
That would be kind of...
I guess that kind of defeats the purpose of a bro. Honestly, I think the setting behind the 10-foot line would change a lot.
Okay.
I also think being able to jump back row, right? Like, I think letting us jump back row instead of hit, like obviously the reason why we're here is so like we can save a sub. Right. That, okay, I don't need to hit front row. But being able to jump and swing while we're back row, I think would be nice.
Yeah.
Like it would open up another offensive option.
Yeah.
Right? Obviously being able to serve is also like defensive, right? Like, serving is my best skill. Ironically, I will say that over and over. So like those kind of things I think I wish were like a thing, but that would just change the whole game. I'm like, I'm not sure we're ready for that.
Hey, but Liv's want to hit too,
Look,
right?
selfishly,
hey, tell us,
right?
Talk to the camera.
I'm just saying selfishly, I think the training would evolve to where you would have more versatility.
Extremely special.
Right. That's actually funny that you say that. So like when I play, or when people say, oh my God, like you're a libero, I'm like, no, I'm a volleyball player, right? And it's so funny because I take a lot of pride in being able to do everything, but I will say kind of the American style, at least of what I noticed, right? I don't have statistics on this, but just from a subjective view, I do feel like we do specialize players early where they maybe don't develop their ability to hit, their ability to block, their ability to pass, what have you, based on the positions that they choose early. And it kind of limits, I think, the ability to play volleyball. Like, because they lack the all-aroundness skill, they forget the skill on how to learn how to play a game, right? Like overall, it's 6 people trying to hit the ball off the floor. So if overall everybody can't, do that, right, then ultimately you're playing a different game. So for me, I always joke about it. I'm like, man, I wish I could play with 6 of me. And I only say that because I think the ball would never hit the ground and I can hit and I take risk, right? So I know myself really well and I've had good enough training where I think I'd be a really good team, right? But I could do everything and I was trained that way. Now, European style, because of the lack of subs, the right sides or the opposites, they play 6 rotations. So the big girls who point score the most in Europe, they can play defense, right? They can set, they can swing, they can run attacks front row and back row. So they learn at an early age how to be a little bit more versatile, which I think players in America, unless you're playing at like the top 10 programs, they don't really have their, a lot of 6 rotation players, right? And a lot of Americans who are, maybe 3 rotation outsides, they have to go be outsides abroad. Maybe they'll go be opposites, right? But if they struggle with the receive part because there's nobody who can sub in back row for them, right? So it kind of limits your ability to like see how far you can go, but it also kind of limits like where you go,
And what's different from maybe, if
right,
US versus Japan in that way?
I think in that way, the back row attack is more prominent, right, overseas than it is in American style. Like I said, because they lack the 6 rotation, they lack 6 rotation players in America, I don't think we develop our back row attack until we're in college, maybe later, right? But when you're playing 6s for the first time, a lot of times, like teams and countries overseas, they have the back row attack established, right? So let's say if that setter who's undersized is they're gonna run down the ball because they'll either set the position 1 player or they'll set the position 6 player, right? If they can't set 4. So I think just having the options back row open that up where then the setters don't have to worry about being offensive. They have an opposite, who's back row or an outside who's back row to kind of make the easier set, right? So then they can still stay in the game. I think that's a little bit more developed, which then creates, right, opportunities, more like options for the attack, right? So that's what I think. That's a really good question. I'm trying to think. I will say, I think reading, they go hand in hand. So for me, I would say, obviously when you're 12, you probably have to react. I don't know. I'm gonna say they go hand in hand. I can't say I relied on more than one or the other because when you're 12, you think the set's not gonna be very consistent. So you have to read, right? Like if I'm a 12-year-old and the ball gets pushed in so far inside, and they're 12 years old, they're not gonna paint the 10-foot line. They're 12, right? So at that point, you kind of have to understand how does a 12-year-old swing. So one, yes, you're reading, and then you obviously have to react. Because when you're younger, you're not going to react as fast as an experienced player, especially an older player. So I think you kind of just build on the game as it evolves, right? I don't think I rely on one more than the other. I will say sometimes I'm not the best example because I was really fast and super athletic. So for me, I read really well because I am quick. And I did have that involved, right? So then where I could, have my reactions will be better. Like there are times I overread, right? So if I see a hole, I'm getting into it, and then, they hit deep rather than I'm stuck in the middle of court. So there are times I think you have to kind of be a little bit disciplined. So I think for me, the evolution isn't in reaction or in like your, ability to read. It's in your ability to do all those things while staying disciplined. So my disciplinedness had to go up because I was just reading and reacting and I wasn't doing the correct thing based on what was giving. So for me, it was like those went hand in hand. And as the game evolved, you can't really rely on those reads because players get better. So you kind of have to be more disciplined to be in your spot and then make your read and react following the right move. So for me, I was just roaming when I was a kid because nobody was going to yell at me. I was digging every ball. And then I got older and they're like, yeah, in order for this defensive system to work, you need to be in the better spot because the blocking gets better, right? The hitters get better. So I think at that point, it evolved more into being disciplined rather than relying on your reaction and your read. It's just so hard because you learn, I learned how to read because I was in a gym. I'd come into AVA, I'd ask the private coach who's giving a hitting lesson, I was like, hey, can I just go dig behind? She's just hitting free balls can I just go dig? So I learned to read based on just in-system situations. And then reacting, obviously your reaction time gets better as you get stronger, you see the ball more, right? So to say I rely on one more than the other, I can't because you need both. Then I started relying on my discipline because I could read, I could react. But if you commit to your read, right, then you can't react because what if you make the wrong read? So it's to me, that's where it comes more into an evolution of being disciplined, not so much relying on the read and the reaction. Well, and I think the discipline part reminds you, okay, I need to be calm, make it simple, right? Because if I'm disciplined, I'll make the right read, I'll make the right reaction. But if you're just not in your right base originally and you're transitioning and then you're trying to rely on the reaction because you're not in the right spot, because you misread, there's so many things. If you're in base, you're ready for the setter dump and you're ready to watch where the setter sets, So if you're calm, okay, they set forward, then you make your reaction and your read. Then you get stopped, make your read, and then dig. So it's that, but it has to start making it simple, but that's where your discipline comes from. I think that was more big because I was a player that my coaches hardly ever yelled at. And they'll tell you, I'll make jokes like, oh, you yelled at me. And they're like, no, we didn't. And they didn't have to until I got older, where I think what my difference between playing club and college was I had to be calmer and I had to be more still, right? And I had to be less of a spaz, right? Once I calmed down, I got better because I could actually watch the game instead of worrying about being super fast and reacting and reading. I could just get to my spot and dig. It's so simple. You just kind of have to be able to be disciplined enough to slow everything down here. That's why I think the game is a little bit slower for me now at some levels, right? Because I'm able just to dial in and be aware of what's going on versus just getting somewhere because I see something, if that makes sense.
Or
yeah.
With the calm on the court.
Well, I think with the mindset, it starts with, there's a difference between service team and defense, right? And I think being able to almost turn on that switch. For all my Vampire Diary fans, okay, I like to say turn on your humanity switch and turn it off. It's the same thing as service team and defense, right? So if you can get into a balance where you know which mode you turn on, I think, intentionally, okay, I gotta be stopped in base. When I get to my read, I'm completely stopped. And that was really hard, right? And then you have to change your timing of some people call it your split step, your pre-hop, your post-hop. The timing of that is also crucial, which my spring seasons in Tulsa, we worked on okay, can we calm my feet down? Can we simple the movements, right? Can we dig with our angles? So those are things we had to isolate before, it didn't just happen, because I used to be moving and jumping and swinging at the ball, but it took college, okay, can I keep my body posture level? Can I get to my base early and be stopped? Can I make the timing of my pre-hop earlier? Can my arms stay out so I can just dig the ball away from my body, right? That took isolation work for years. It wasn't just something that happened overnight. That was my biggest probably transition from club to college was the steadiness and the calmness, I think. I think also realizing I'm not going to dig every ball.
Ability-wise, you are not going to be 100%.
Right.
Which is your license.
Once my coaches taught me, and once I actually bought into the idea that I'm going to dig every ball if I just get to my right spot and be still, rather than trying to like overthink it and be tense. And they ended up being right, of course. But once I actually understood that concept, it was like, it took off for me. I think I really excelled at that point.
Gotcha. Now, oh, well, this is not within her range, so I'm going to go take this.
Yeah.
Free ball situation.
It just depends on the dynamic of your team, right? I obviously probably favor a middle just a little bit more, because if a middle can be super dynamic on the net, they can move to both sides efficiently, and it helps me where there's not a lot of splits in the block, right? It's pretty easy to read the hitter. Like, hitters aren't going to challenge the middle if they have a good inside hand, right? They can press. Now, when it comes to having the dynamic of maybe a good middle back, like, I think that's nice. I like to think of my middle backs now that I play at the pro level as outsides. So I don't want them covering a lot of court in a sense, right? I want them to be able to be an offensive option. So for me, like, if we have that fluidity where they will let me cover a lot and then they can still be an option, that's great. I probably favor a middle blocker just a little bit more, because the attackers get better the more experience you get, right? Like the higher level teams, you don't have long rallies because they put the ball away early. So for me, I think having a better middle blocker, like a more efficient middle blocker from a blocking standpoint, is a little bit more valuable in the success defensively for a bro, right? Now, if we're talking serve receive, I think it's the opposite.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
Passing wise, it just depends. Like, if we're trying to side out, obviously I want an efficient middle, right? If we're trying to just focus on like quality of the reception, I think having somebody that you can cover the floor with and be comfortable with is super important, because then your outside who's front row can just go hit. You two can balance the court. So it just depends on like the dynamic of your team and what you define as successful for a libero, right? It could be different for everybody. That's where volleyball is like such a beautiful thing. Everyone has their opinions. I'm just saying, in a sense of like ability to defend a ball, I think I'd value probably having a better middle blocker just a little bit more. It's a lot easier to read in that situation. It makes life easy.
Okay.
Yeah. A self-pep talk, I don't know. Like, a lot of my energy just comes from like, go out there and have fun and stay safe, you know? Like, a lot of it is not, as the older I get, I mean, I will honestly say where I've evolved is like the younger I got was more focused on like, all right, you need to pass every ball to target. Even in college, it was like, all right, we got to get 6 digs per set. Crazy, right? You can't always control that. Now it's more in a sense of like, enjoy what you're doing, right? Go out there and have fun, okay? Remember why you play, right? And that's my pep talk. And then that's how I redial. Okay, well, I'll probably be eating a full meal because I'll be starving. If we lose, I try not to have any guilty pleasure things. I'll try to be on top of it, right? Maybe a soda, right? I'm a big Mountain Dew fan, love Sprite. Usually if we win, I love a good pizza after a game. Love a good pizza to refuel. Not the best thing, but if we win, it's nice to kind of be human and celebrate the small victories. So I think pizza, maybe wings at the same time would also be probably my guilty pleasure meal after a game. Only if we win though, only if we win. If I'm playing for like fun, literally I'll wear my Nike shorts and like a t-shirt. I'm not fancy. I mean, I have a sports bra and shorts usually. If I'm playing in a beach tournament, like I'll wear, I typically like colors. So I've been wearing a lot of stripes, like kind of like striped suits or like bottoms with a lot of color. Tops are usually solid color. I have an array of sports bras. I don't like the super like thin ones. I'll wear like a sports bra. But yeah, typically nothing crazy. Grass is shorts and a sports bra typically because it's so hot. But just playing for fun, I'll have a good old Nike short with a t-shirt.
Shout out Nike.
Woohoo!
Sponsor.
Well, UNA's Adidas, but.
Oh, sorry. All right. Getting out
of the way.
Is in a lane,
yes.
You have to always be very aware of that.
Yes.
When you're playing your defense.
Yeah, because you want to make sure that you're not in the way. Obviously, you don't want to get stepped on. But if you're in the hitter's line or their vision, you're affecting their approach, right? Because if we're trying to maximize the number of options we have, you have to be aware of your dive. So let's say if I'm diving from 5 all the way to position 1 across the court, I could affect my position 2's offense, right? Because I decided I wanted to be overly aggressive and steal this ball when my right back could have just taken it, right? So now I took out a hitter. And the blockers at a higher level are gonna know, okay, well, everything's gonna be on that side of the court, right? Especially the setter's back, because there's no slide, right? So you have pipe, middle, and then 4 as the only options. That's gonna make it easier to see 4 hands on all the blockers. So if I can make my dive move efficiently, where I'm no longer in the line of attack, that's kind of ideally what we want, which is why some coaches don't like the liberos coming across the court to dig every ball, right? They want to keep them in their lanes to maximize how much offense available options we have. It also depends on the skill of your hitters, right? If I take out a hitter that isn't really efficient anyway, then it doesn't matter because she probably won't see the ball. However, that's not the case when you play at the pro level. Everybody can hit, you know? No. To be honest, I'm gonna shout out all my coaches. It's really hard to name all of them. People who've gotten me here, all of my people who just support me, even from afar, right? Whether we're friends, whether we're just acquaintances, whether we're loved ones. Also, big shout out to my family. I think, I need a place to go home to, right? When I come back overseas, and they always welcome me with open arms. And, I'm about to actually head to the airport today. So my poor mom, they have to support me through thick and thin, and if that's, it's hard for them to have to say goodbye too. It's hard for me. It's also hard that they have to say goodbye to their child for another time, and they don't know how many times they have to keep saying goodbye, and it can put a lot of strain on all my relationships. So this is just me shouting out people who are in my corner. I see you guys, I appreciate you guys, and it takes a lot on them emotionally to be able to support me in my dreams. Someone told me, I'm not gonna shout them out, but it's hard being my friend, right? It's hard caring about me and loving me because I'm constantly on the run, I'm constantly doing things, I'm constantly not here. And I recognize that, I see that, and I just want to know it's hard for me too, right? And I really appreciate the sacrifices that they make to care for me. And yeah, it can be hard, and there's gonna be time when I'm done. Hopefully I'll be a little bit more stable in my life, and we'll have a little bit more security in the States. But I appreciate you guys having my back when I pursue my dream, I have people get on to me all the time about the way I handle things, the way I do things, and I need that in my life because, no, I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be perfect. I've never, I have it wrong. I'm learning as a coach. I'm learning as a player. I'm still young. So yeah, no, I think there's been plenty of people that got on to me this summer, last summer, my whole life. Keep getting on to me because I want to make sure I do it right? And I rely on that. If people are just goo goo gaga with the fact that I play pro, it takes away the humanistic part of getting to know me as a person. Because when this is all said and done, I'm not gonna care that I played pro. No one's gonna care that I was a pro, right? They're gonna value and take away okay, was I good? Was I a good person? Was I kind? Was I generous? And that's something I care about more, was the experience of getting to know Taylor as a person, not getting to know Taylor as just a volleyball player, right?
With that said,
can I shout you out?
You can, sure, go ahead.
All right, well, I just want to thank Mike for being so wonderful and awesome. He's a really, really great guy, and I hope that you guys really take the time and see this video and work with him more, because I'm going to after this, and I think it's been wonderful getting to also know a person, not just for what they do, but for who they are. And he's been so curious about my volleyball, and it makes me so feel appreciative in the fact that I get to hopefully share my knowledge with him and other people who are interested. So thank you, first of all, that was amazing. You're amazing. And I hope to continue to support you like you support me. I was let me say that on camera, and you better put that in because you're important.
More of what you just alluded to than
yeah, for sure. I think there's more of an adult community in beach that I've been able to resonate to. So I think they get Taylor the human. It's just funny because not everyone gets to see me in the pro life. My professional career isn't in America, it's abroad. So I think people get to know me a little bit more as Taylor the human, a little bit more, right? It's still not the same. Hopefully we'll get to a point one day when I'll, get that comfortability to be more myself, but for sure the beach community gets to see it more because beach is a little bit more chill and fun and relaxed, but yeah. Look, so I got purple for UNA, Adidas Hydrate or Dihydrate, and there's sand all over my water bottle.